This is the original podcast edition of The Guild of the Cowry Catchers by Abigail Hilton, now part of the complete Pirates of Wefrevane series. The books are available as audiobooks, ebooks, and paperbacks. This podcast originally aired from 2010 to 2014. Stick around after the story for commentary from me, the author, more than a decade later.
Dark Heart. Maven thinks of each prisoner as a pool of brightly colored fish. Later, years later, she will come to think of them as houses full of rooms. But right now, pools and fish are what she knows. When she touches their skin, it is as though she drops through the dungeon floor into a deep, sun-dappled grotto. The fish dart past in every shade: green, turquoise, red, yellow, and aquamarine. She sees things when she touches them, things she doesn't understand, but wants to. Strange-looking people, bizarre food, impossible places full of light and color. At first, when she was very little, she would become confused and begin chasing the fish, trying to eat them. Then the water would fill with blood, and she would have to leave the pool because the prisoners would scream and scream, or sometimes they would just stop. Mother explained that she must not attack the fish or even startle them too much. But sometimes it is right to eat just one. Mother tells her which one, and she must hunt it very carefully. Eating the fish inside the prisoners is not like eating fish from the ocean. She never knows beforehand what prisoners' fish will taste like, and she can't always describe it later. The taste is not bad, but sometimes there is a moment of confusion. She is uncertain, just for an instant, where the prisoner ends and she begins. She has a vague sense of danger. But then she feels herself flooding back, and the fish is part of her, and it is not part of the prisoner any longer, and they are separate again. Sometimes the prisoners cry when she eats their fish, but more often they don't seem to know what is happening. Mother talks calmly and gently, no matter what the prisoners say, or what kind of sounds they make. This is reassuring to Maven. Mother is not concerned. There is nothing to be concerned about. More often than eating the fish, Mother wants her to hold one and tell what she sees. Maven describes people she has never met, repeats conversations she doesn't understand, lists cities and places that she can't even imagine. Mother is very proud when she is able to do this. Mother's attention is precious and fleeting, so Maven tries hard to catch the correct fish. Most pools have rocks at the bottom. At first, she was scared to go near them, and she is still cautious. Bad things live under the rocks. Eels with sharp teeth, scuttling crabs with oversized claws, water spiders, giant centipedes, and things for which she has no name, but which haunt her nightmares. If one of the things brushes against her, she sees images of fear, disappointment, loneliness, and death. The first time she saw one of the rock monsters, she was terrified that Mother would send her after it to eat it. But Mother never does that. Sometimes she will send Maven down to touch one of the monsters and tell what she sees. This is frightening, but brief. More frequently, Mother will just ask Maven to turn over all the rocks. This can be a little scary, because it sends the monsters scuttling everywhere, and it stirs up the water in clouds. Sometimes the monsters start attacking the fish, and there is blood and screaming. Then the prisoners will answer questions that they didn't want to answer before. Mother tries to teach Maven how to alter the fish and then let them go again, but Maven isn't very good at it. Mother tells her to imagine the fish as blocks that she can rearrange. But Maven is stuck on fish. She is 5. She has never had blocks. Mother brings her some to practice with, but it doesn't work. One day, Maven turns over a rock on the bottom of a pool, and the thing that comes out from under it looks like her. Long and slender, with delicate wings that end in clawed fingers. The monster bares its needle-sharp teeth, and the frill around its head stands out like spikes. Maven is confused and frightened. She doesn't dare touch it, but later she asks her mother, "Do I have a pool inside me too?" Mother cocks her head. Maven knows that she thinks of the prisoners differently, that Mother sees their insides differently, but she understands the pool. Yes. Maven looks around at the dripping cave. Nothing inside her could possibly be filled with light and colored fish. She is certain that her pool must be very dark. Am I a monster, Mother? Mother hesitates. You're a goddess, child. Am I a monster goddess? This makes Mother smile, and Maven forgets to be worried. You are exactly what you should be. You're not a Shelt. Don't confuse yourself with them. Maven nods, although she doesn't understand. Mother is in a mood to hold her and stroke her head, and so nothing else matters. But later, when she is curled alone in the shadowy vaults, she wonders if somewhere inside her is a dark pool. She imagines it sloshing around where her heart ought to be, a pool full of white, eyeless fish and monsters. Author's note. Maven first appears in Book 2 of the Guild of the Cowry Catchers. She is the one who interrogates the prisoners for Morchella, her mother. One of those prisoners is Honoru from the Scarlet Albatross, who loses her mind for about 2 years after the experience. Maven also demonstrates her interrogation style on Silvio, who is so unsettled that he nearly allows himself to run away with Gerard and Thessalin that night. Though a powerful telepath, Maven is only about 10 years old at the time and doesn't understand what she is doing. This short story explores the way that she perceives her interactions with prisoners. Gerard meets Maven in Book 3 of Cowry Catchers. She is posing as an adult ship's healer and calls herself Dark Heart, for reasons explored in this short story. The sailors, however, shorten her name to Dakar.
And I'm back. This is 2025 Abby, almost 2026, coming to you with a few thoughts on this little story. So this story was actually written quite a bit forward in time from the rest of the material in this book. It was written in 2016. I had to actually go and check my comprehensive writing document that tracks all my writing since 2013. It was one of the Patreon stories. So at that time, I was running a poll every month, and I was writing a short story every single month for the Patreon. At the beginning of the month, they would vote on the character, and I would give them a list, which was eventually all of the major characters in the Pirates of Wevervain saga, and they would vote on a character, and I would write a short story about that character. And I did not let them tell me what to write, because that would have just been too restrictive. Most of those short stories were backstory, so I wasn't committing to new material. Every once in a while, one would fill in something that happened off-screen in the main novels, and I think very rarely I might have actually done something that happened in the future, but mostly these were backstories. Some of them, though, ended up being kind of required reading for things that I ended up doing later in the saga. They changed what I was going to write because they forced me to flesh out characters, flesh out their pasts, sometimes commit to the details of events that had happened off screen in the past and that were significant in the novels, but I had never nailed down the details. And once I nailed down those details, they informed future books and stories. That's just how my brain works. I can't really write something and then not fit it into the puzzle somewhere. So this is both a plus and a minus of me doing these kinds of things. Anyway, at that time, I was writing a short story every single month in addition to working on novels, and I let the readers vote. And this was the very beginning of 2016. The novel I was working on was Jaeger Thunder. So the books in this saga go The Guild of the Cowry Catchers, Shores Beyond the World, Scarlet Albatross, Jaeger Thunder, and The Cormorant. So I was working on the second to last of the big, chunky novels in this series when I wrote this little vignette about Dakar. So I can tell that my writing skills had improved in between writing this short story and other things at the beginning of this series. You, the reader, might not be able to. I don't know. Obviously, this short story was a little bit experimental. I think this might have been the first time I wrote something in present tense, which, don't worry, we're not about to switch to present tense for the novels. I just was playing around, and I do think it's sometimes fun to do something short in present tense. I think that works particularly well for a vignette or a 1,000-word short story. And then, of course, I was exploring how Dakar, as a child, experiences her telepathy, what it feels like to her, how she thinks of it, because she's participating in torture, but she doesn't understand that, and she doesn't think of it that way. So how does she think of it? And there were some reasons later on in the novel where it was useful to me to explore her perception of that, because she does come into contact with characters that she has tortured. Anyway, that was what I was doing with this short story. I felt like it fit at this point, and I think I mentioned before, these short stories were originally packaged as a separate series, which had, I believe, 4 books eventually. So it was a separate series of 4 little books that were short stories from Wefrevane, or short stories from Panamindorah, I think. And the problem with that is that many of these stories had become required reading to understand the novels. You were supposed to read them in between the novels, and people just didn't find their way to that. Unless people were really keyed in and on my Patreon and paying attention to what I was doing, arranging the series like this was not working. So at that time, I had the Guild of the Cowry Catchers, all those little books, and then I had the Refugees series, which was originally Scarlet Albatross, Jaeger Thunder, and Cormorant. And then I had these short stories that you were supposed to read in between different of these novels. This is not a good organization. It's because these books got written over a couple of decades. So when I reorganized everything, I took all the short stories and I put them in the backs of the novels at points in time when I felt it would be most useful for the reader to encounter them. So they are no longer in the saga in the order that I wrote them, but I think this is a good order to encounter them. So some of the other books have more short stories in the back. This first book is quite chunky and quite long, and we're also in the middle of the first arc of the story. Those first 2 books really are a continuous arc. So we just get 2 of them, we get 2 of the shorter ones, but I think that this backstory about Silvio and a little bit of backstory about Dakar is really useful for you to know at this particular point in time. This concludes the first book of what is currently the Pirates of Wefrevane series. That first book is called The Guild of the Cowry Catchers. Again, if you are interested in getting the first chapter of this story as a comic or some other little extras, please go to my website. If you buy the ebook from me, which I usually have steeply discounted for that first book, you can get that little comic attached to it. There are also interviews with the voice actors and music and all kinds of other stuff at shop.abigailhilton.com. Next week, we will start into book 2, which is Shores Beyond the World. In the original organization, that was book 4 when they were smaller, and that one was called Out of the Ashes. So that's what you're going to hear it called in the legacy version of the audio and the time capsules that are these podcasts. I hope you enjoyed what is now the Guild of the Cowry Catchers. Additionally, you can get the paperback version of this story from Amazon, or you can get it signed from me on my website. I do not yet have drop shipping available for any of my paper books. That means that you could order it from my website and it would be shipped directly from the printer to you. So if I could get that running, which that's one of my goals for 2026, if I could get that up and running, then I would be encouraging you to buy books directly from me in pretty much every format. As it currently stands, don't buy signed books from me unless what you really want is a signed book. You are going to pay substantially more for it, and I have to go to the post office. And if that's what you want, if you're like, I want to pay more and get a signed book that you have handled and it has been shipped twice, if that's what you want, then absolutely, that's why it exists. That's why I make it available. Don't feel bad about that. But that doesn't scale. You know, like if 100 of you decide you want a signed book from me, I'm going to really scramble. Whereas if I can get drop shipping set up where the print-on-demand company just ships it directly to you when you order it on my website, then that scales infinitely. Like if 100 of you go and do that right now, it will not cause any problems for me at all. I don't touch those books. It would also be cheaper for you than ordering a signed book from me that has to be shipped twice and that requires me to go to the post office. It's not going to be as cheap as Amazon. Nothing is going to be as cheap as Amazon because they subsidize that business with the whole rest of their business. So I can't offer you free shipping, for instance. But it would be more competitive if I could get the drop shipping thing set up. So as of this moment in time, which is right after Christmas of 2025, I don't have that set up. However, it is high on my to-do list. So if you are interested in that, if you would like to circumvent Amazon for a book that you just want to read, you just want a paperback to read, not you're yearning for a signed copy, but you just want a paperback to read, I would suggest checking my website, shop.abigailhilton.com. It is currently run by PayHip, and I like PayHip a lot, but I think to switch to drop shipping may require me to switch to Shopify, which is a much more powerful online store, but also a lot more fiddly. And I think I probably need to actually take a class if I'm going to successfully install Shopify and get it to do all of the special things I want it to do, because it is much more fiddly than PayHip. I do not want to do all the work to switch over if I'm not going to actually use its more powerful functions. Anyway, like the primary episodes for this podcast, everything that I'm saying right now will eventually be a time capsule and totally obsolete. And in 5 years, I'll be doing something different, which is why I keep telling you what the year and date is. Because if you, my friend, are in the future somewhere, things might have changed. I do intend to keep my store at shop.abigailhilton.com. I can take that URL somewhere else. So you notice I'm not giving you the PayHip URL. So hopefully that will be true even if I have switched to a different online store format. Anyway, bottom line, if you want the paper version of The Guild of the Cowry Catchers right now, and you want it just to read in the cheapest format, I would say go to Amazon. If you want a signed copy of the paperback, come to my site, get it from me. If you would like little extras, get the ebook from me. It will be cheaper than Amazon. There's no advantage to getting the ebook or the audiobook anywhere else. Get it from me. You'll probably get some extras with it, and it will also be cheaper than getting it from other places. Hardbacks. There are no hardbacks for these books right now. I've had people ask about them a few times. They are very big novels. So it would be a real challenge, maybe impossible, for me to get these doorstops between hardback covers from something like KDP Print, which is currently doing all of my paper books. There's a limit to the page count on KDP print. It's much lower than the page count limit on the softbacks. And as you know, if you are a book lover, a really chunky novel that is glued into its binding in a hardback version is just a lot more likely to fall apart. It's almost guaranteed to fall apart at some point. And these books are in excess of 200,000 words, I think every single one of them. There are increasing options as I speak to get more specialized bindings, even in print on demand. So I will investigate that, but I think the best option for creating a hardback version of this series would actually be an offset print run and probably a Kickstarter to fund that. I have no idea if there is enough interest out there. A handful of people have asked. There may not be enough interest because that is not cheap. But if you are interested, I will certainly announce a Kickstarter on this podcast if I do one. And that would certainly be the best way to create some hardcover versions of these books. All right, I hope you're enjoying the story, and I will see you in book 2. This is Abigail Hilton, and you have been listening to the Pirates of Wefravain saga. Join me on Patreon for early episodes, long-form interviews, forum access, personal updates, and lots of artwork, including maps and species charts. That's patreon.com/Abigail Hilton. If you want the whole story now with no interruptions and some remastering of the early books for sound quality, you can find the entire series at shop.abigailhilton.com, along with all my other novels. The audiobooks are delivered by BookFunnel. Background music was Hidden Sky by Jamie Sieber, licensed from Magnatune.net circa 2014. The Guild of the Cowry Catchers podcast is an audio adaptation of the Pirates of Wefravain saga, written and produced by Abigail Hilton. Original production copyright 2010. All rights are reserved to the author.